I was born into a poor family, but we live in a life packed of care and affection. My mother never forgot to check me and my sibling from time to time if we are fine. I also remember the time when our mother used to play dolls with us, running around outside of our house, and she makes our hair look so beautiful. She constantly reminds me and my younger sister to love one another no matter how hard we might fight against each other. No matter how bad the situation is, we must put into our minds that love is unconditional and love is forgiving. At a young age, I already know all the hardships in life. I help my mother to do house chores so in that simple way, I can lessen her sources of stress and fatigue. My tasks in our house are washing the dishes and cleaning the floor, while my little sister cleans the kitchen in the morning and every after dinner before going to bed. My mother does all the remaining tasks, but one thing is for sure, she can cook delicious but simple foods. Sometimes, I see her being morose because she can't find money to support our needs. There is one trait of my mother that I will never forget. She is a liar. Since I was born into a poor family, which most of the time we did not have any kind of food that can fill our very hungry stomachs. To the point that my little sister just cried out of starvation. Whenever meal times came, mother would often give all her food to us. But she doesn't know that every meal can feel that she is also hungry. But because she loves us so deeply, she transfers her food into our bowls. She would always say, "Eat all your food. Mama is not hungry." And that was her first lie, pretending that she's not hungry. When I was growing up, my mother spent her spare time in fishing in a river near in our barangay. There, she is hoping that she could catch some fish to provide a little bit of nutrition needed for the growth of her two children. After fishing, she would cook some soup that the main ingredient is the fish from the river, which filled our stomach. Most of the time, while I am dividing the soup, my mother would sit beside me and eat the remaining parts left from the fish that I had eaten. Every time I see my mother doing that, my heart gets deeply touched. So I use my fork and give her the other portion of my food. But she always refuses and tells me, "Eat the fish, darling. I don't really like fish dishes." And that is her second lie. Then, when I was in high school, to be able to fund my studies, my mother always slept very late at night to do some clothes to sell. There was an instance that I woke up from my sleep and I saw my mother, who was still awake, doing stitches on some clothes that she will be selling in the next morning. I told her, "Mother, go to sleep. It's late and tomorrow morning you still have to go to your work." But she only smiled at me and she said, "Go to sleep, my dear. I'm not tired." That was my mother's third lie. There was a time that my mother asked for leave because she is a helper, in order to accompany me to school to take the exam because I'm not feeling well. My mother waited for me patiently under the heat of the sun for the several hours. waiting for me to finish my exam. As the bell rang, which indicated that the final exam was finished, my mother immediately welcomed me and with a cup of juice that she brought near the school. Seeing my mother covered with perspiration from standing too long under the sun, I gave her my cup of juice, but she pushed the cup back to me and said, "Drink it, my dear, I'm not thirsty." And that was my mother's fourth lie. After the death of my father due to stroke, my poor mother had to provide for us as a single parent. She had to fund our needs alone. From the death of my father, our family's life became more complicated, and no day went by without some form of suffering. Day by day, our family's condition was getting worse, but we are blessed with a kind uncle who lived near our house and assisting us every now and then. Our neighbors often advised my mother to marry again, but she didn't mind the advice, saying, "I don't need love." That was my mother's fifth lie. After I had finished my studies and get a job through the sacrifices of my mother, I expected that she will going to retire from work, but she didn't want to. Instead, she would go to the market every morning just to sell some vegetables to support herself. Since I have worked in another city, I often send her some money to help her, but she would not accept the money. At times, she even sent the money back to me saying, "I have enough money," and that was my mother's sixth lie. Since I already had a bachelor's degree, I decided to pursue my master's degree, but it was through the help of a company's scholarship program. Consequently, I was given an opportunity to work in their company. Finally, earning a good salary, I decided to bring my mother to live with me so that she could enjoy her life in a more comfortable place. But my mother didn't want to bother her daughter. She said to me, "I'm not used to that kind of life, my daughter." And that was my mother's seventh lie. Old age, my mother got head and body ache and had to be hospitalized. I, who lived miles away across the land, went home to visit my dearest mother. I saw that she laid weak on her bed after having an operation. My mother, who looked so old, was staring at me in a deep thought. She tried to put on a warm smile for me, but it takes some effort from her part to do that. She looked so frail and weak, and it was evident that the disease had ravaged my mother's body. Not even bothering to wipe the tears flowing freely from my eyes, I stared at my mother and my heart hurt so much. But my mother, with a little strength remaining in her, she said, "Don't cry, my dear. I'm not in pain." And that was my mother's eighth and last lie. After saying her eighth lie, my dearest mother closed her eyes forever, and the heaven openly cracked and claimed her.